Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Arizona Cardinals at the Philadelphia Eagles in their Week 15 matchup played December 20th, 2015 as these two playoff contenders were going at it on Sunday Night Football. We're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. The Cardinals came into this game with a chance to clinch the NFC West, and the Eagles were looking to keep pace in the NFC East as the Redskins had won earlier in the day and the Giants had lost. So if the Eagles won, they'd be tied with the Redskins, or else they would fall back a game behind Washington in the East, tied for second with the Giants. So both teams had a lot to play for here in this game. And starting off in the first quarter, just over 4 minutes in, the Cardinals score first. David Johnson with a 1-yard touchdown. Chandler Catanzaro adds the extra point, and it was 7-0 Arizona over Philadelphia. But then with about 6 minutes still left in the first quarter, Caleb Sturgis hit a 36-yard field goal to make it a 4-point game with the score Arizona 7, Philadelphia 3. So that was the score after one. And then less than a minute into the second quarter, Chandler Catanzaro hit a 28-yard field goal to make it 10-3 as the Cardinals extended their lead to 7. But then with about 8.5 minutes still left in the first half, Sam Bradford hit Zach Ertz for a 22-yard touchdown that tied this game up at 10 once Caleb Sturgis hit the extra point. So tied up at 10, but then with 4 minutes left before halftime, David Johnson makes some amazing moves and runs 47 yards for the touchdown, his second touchdown of the night. Chandler Catanzaro adds the extra point, and the Cardinals were back in the lead by 7 with the score Arizona 17, Philadelphia 10. So that was the score at halftime. Then in the second half, with just over 5 minutes played into the quarter, David Johnson scored on a 1-yard touchdown run, his third touchdown of the night, and it was now 23-10 Arizona over Philadelphia. Then with less than a minute left in the third, Carson Palmer hit John Brown for a 16-yard touchdown. Catanzaro added the extra point, and it was now 30-10 as the Cardinals led by 20. So that's the score after 3. And then just seconds into the fourth quarter, Deone Bucannon picks off Bradford and returns it 39 yards for the pick 6. Chandler Catanzaro with the extra point, and it was now 37-10 as the Cardinals were running away with this one. But then just moments later, less than half a minute later, Sam Bradford hits Jordan Matthews for a 78-yard touchdown. Sturgis adds the extra point, but that just made it a 20-point game as they still trail by 3 touchdowns. But now with about 3 minutes left, Catanzaro would hit a 38-yard field goal. That made it 40-17, and that would be the final score. As the Cardinals, after having a close first half, they totally dominate the second half as they ended up scoring 23 points in the second half versus just 7 points for the Eagles in the second half. And they go on to win 40-17. Palmer had left the game at one point for a moment, and they had Drew Stanton come in as Carson Palmer had hit his finger, kind of looked like almost he hit the face mask of Connor Barwin on a pass attempt. But it was kind of tough to see if he had just kind of hit him hand to hand as Barwin was coming in to hit him right as he was letting go of the pass. It almost looked like maybe he hit the face mask. That's what they were saying. It was kind of hard to tell with the replay, but he was all right. He was able to come back in the game, and Arizona gets a big win off a big performance by David Johnson, the rookie from Northern Iowa, who has been having a pretty good year in limited role, but since taking over that starting position as Chris Johnson went down to injury, David Johnson has been stepping up big time for Arizona. And with this win, the Cardinals are now 12-2, 7-1 on the road, as they've now clinched the NFC West, and they only have 2 games left to play, both home games. And if they could win their final 2 games, and although the Panthers are undefeated right now, if the Panthers lose their last 2 games, the Cardinals would end up with the number 1 seed. So home field advantage is still a possibility, however unlikely that the Panthers would lose 2 games although I do believe the Cardinals will win out. But we shall see. That remains to be seen in the next couple weeks. But Philadelphia, they also hold their fate in their own hands, as it's not as bright and sunny of a situation there in Philadelphia. But with their record at 6-8, even with the loss, the Eagles can still clinch the East if they win out. So if they can win out, being that their final two games are against the Redskins and the Eagles, they can end up, or the Redskins and the Giants, rather, they are the Eagles. Excuse the mistake, but they can still win the East even with the loss. So obviously you want to win if you're them, but they aren't in that bad of a position with the loss. Really more losing the way they lost. That's what's really hurt them. But the Cardinals are sitting pretty there. They are on their way to the playoffs. They won the title there, and they'll be looking to have a first round bye as well. They already had the first round bye, but with Philadelphia, they're 3-4 at home, so they're going to have to win their final home game to be 500 on the season at home, and they need to win their final two games to be 500 on the season. Of course, the Cardinals have one of the second best record in the NFC. But in this game, Carson Palmer, 20 for 32, 274 passing yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And David Johnson, 29 carries for 187 yards. He was killing it. 3 touchdowns. He also had 4 catches for 42 yards, as he ended up in this game with 119 total yards, or 129 total yards, rather. So David Johnson, a huge performance. And Michael Floyd also had 5 catches for 70 yards. And Fells had 3 catches for 54 yards. Larry Fitzgerald, 3 catches for 43 yards. And John Brown had 3 catches for 38 yards and a touchdown. And for the Eagles, Sam Bradford, 28 for 41, 361 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Ryan Matthews had 11 carries for 58 yards in this game. He also had a catch for 3 yards, giving him 61 total yards. Jordan Matthews had 8 catches for 159 yards and a touchdown. Zach Ertz, 8 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown. And DeMarco Murray, just 2 carries for 3 yards. There was actually a point early on in the game where they were faced with a 4th-and-1 situation, and the announcers made a huge point that DeMarco Murray was 12 for 12 in such situations, and they went for it on 4th down even though they were within field goal range, and they ended up not converting. They turned the ball over on downs, and that was an interesting situation, I thought, because, I mean, if you're going against the Cardinals, you take any points you can get. You do not walk away from the red zone with 0. If you have to settle for 3, you settle for 3. You got to get points on the board. Instead, they go for it, and they come away with nothing. And they didn't even give the ball to Murray. Of course, the way the Eagles have been playing, I don't know if Murray would have gotten that, but we'll never know. Anyway, for the kickers in this game, Chandler Catanzaro, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 4 for 5 on the extra points. Caleb Sturgis, 1 for 1 on the field goals, 2 for 2 on the extra points. And on defense, for Arizona, Deone Bucannon had an interception. He returned that for a touchdown. Tyrann Mathieu had an interception as well. Golden forced a fumble and had a sack. Murrow also forced a fumble, and Stinson had a sack as well. As the Eagles actually turned the ball over 4 times in the second half, as the Cardinals they just solidified this game in that second half. They really dominated that second half. They made the adjustments at halftime on both sides of the ball, and then you just stopped the Eagles in their tracks there in the second half, forcing those turnovers. And, of course, on offense, they just kept on rolling. David Johnson was having quite the night. And for Philadelphia on defense, Fletcher Cox had a sack. Smith had a half a sack, as did Connor Barwin. We look at the team stats, 28 first downs for the Cardinals, 19 first downs for the Eagles. And on third down, Arizona, 8 of 14, 57% conversion rate. The Eagles were 6 of 12, 50% conversion rate. 0 for 2 on 4th down for Philadelphia. And then we look at the total net yards, 493 for Arizona, 424 for Philadelphia. And on the ground, the Cardinals netted 230 yards, and the Eagles netted just 74 yards. So 3 times as many rushing yards for the Cardinals as they averaged 2.2 more yards per rushing play, averaging 5.9. Then we look at the passing yards. Net passing, 350 for the Eagles. Bradford sacked twice for a loss of 11 yards. 263 for the Cardinals, as Palmer sacked twice for a loss of 11 yards as well. We look at the penalties in this game. 5 penalties against Philadelphia. And the Cardinals, I'm seeing just 1 penalty. I don't know if that's right. I think that might be an error here. Sorry about that. But the fumbles in this game, 2 fumbles for the Eagles, both of which came in the second half and both of which they lost. The Cardinals had 1 fumble, but they recovered their own fumble. Of course, the 2 interceptions also for the Eagles came in the second half. And then in the red zone, 3 for 4 for the Cardinals, 75%, 0 for 2 for Philadelphia, 0% in the red zone. And right there, that's the whole game right there, the red zone. As the Cardinals kept getting there, and they kept scoring, they kept coming away with points. The Eagles only made 2 trips to the red zone, and they did not come away with a touchdown either time. They just come away with 3 points. But we look at the time of possession. Of course, as always, whether it's a win or a loss, the Eagles always lose the battle of the time of possession. The Chip Kelly experiment in terms of the quick pace just is not working. 37 minutes, 28 seconds for Arizona, 22 minutes, 32 seconds for Philadelphia. And that's the thing with that, the Eagles trying to run that quick offense, trying to run that Oregon style, that NCAA football style in the pros. It's one thing in college because you've got like 100 players, you got like 150 guys on the sideline. You can substitute like crazy. You got maybe 4 guys who could be your starter at every position, and you're just totally loaded with talent, especially at a big school like Oregon. But in the pros, you only have a 52-man roster. And even though they got plenty of capable running backs, Murray's a rhythm guy. You need to get him as carries, and they're not doing that. Although, the thing is, people will say, with DeMarco Murray and everything, I actually think that it could turn out, if the Eagles do come away with this division, which they still could if they win out, it's possible. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that happen, because this East, it seems like no one wants to win it. But, if Philadelphia can win out, then picking up DeMarco Murray actually, even still, was a good pickup. And if they take the division, it probably was the best pickup of the offseason by any team if they take the division. Because think about this. If DeMarco Murray was on the Cowboys this year, if the Eagles hadn't signed him out from under their nose, if Murray's on the Cowboys, he wouldn't have necessarily had the season he had last year, but he still would have rushed for probably about 1,200 yards or so. And without Romo, but with Murray, the Cowboys, they'd be in first place in the East by like 2-3 games right now. So the only reason the Eagles are even still alive in the East is because they signed Murray and because the Cowboys don't have Murray. Otherwise, this division would have been the Cowboys. But enough of that. Arizona, huge win. And they were one of the best teams last year. They were 11-5 and didn't make the playoffs. The best team did not make the playoffs without a doubt. And they have been a team on a mission. And the goal is to make it to the Super Bowl. And it's going to be really interesting to see how things shape up in the playoffs. As you said earlier, with Carolina going 14-0, the only other 3 teams to ever do that all made the Super Bowl. But Arizona, they're also a team of destiny. So it's going to be interesting to see when those 2 teams of destiny battle that out in the playoffs. But not to mention, the still also in the NFC, the Seahawks are a tough team. They've been to 2 Super Bowls in a row. Also, the Packers, even though their defense has been struggling in Minnesota, at home, they're a really tough team. Of course, they're going to have to win on the road in the playoffs from the looks of it. So it's going to be interesting to see how things shape up in the playoffs. But Arizona definitely looks to be a team of destiny. They've been just on a roll. They've been playing some excellent football going back to last year. They're one of the best teams. So Definitely going to be a fun playoffs to watch, and that's coming up in a couple weeks, and we still got 2 more weeks left, week 16 and 17. A lot of things are going to be decided in the next 2 weeks, and that's going to be fun for sure. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day, and you had a great weekend, and enjoyed all the sports.